The unknown mechanic back again for a short. Today I'm working on a Shindaiwa HT2510-40 commercial hedge trimmer, and this belongs to my worst customer, Bert Toadberger. I kicked that guy out of the shop so many times and he keeps coming back. I can't get rid of him, and he calls this a Shindaiwa. Anyway, what he does is anytime there's any kind of a problem with the machine, he slaps a new carburetor on it. That's his go-to fix. Just slap a new carburetor on it. And obviously that didn't work, so he's in. And when I was pulling the starter rope, first thing I noticed is that the blades were moving when I was pulling the starter rope. And I heard a loud rattling noise coming from somewhere inside, so decided to take a look at the clutch, and indeed the clutch is very badly worn. So I'm going to take that off. Can make a comparison here. Huge difference. So I'm going to put a clutch in it and we'll go from there. Alright, we are resuming the Shindaiwa HT2510-40 hedge trimmer. The complaint is after the customer has replaced the carburetor, the unit still has no power, even with the new carburetor. So we're going to do a test run and see if we can find any other issues. I've already addressed the clutch, which is a safety issue. I don't want to start it up and have a clutch shoe spit out. So that's done. And that's also important because you want the blades to stop. If the blades are always turning, that's dangerous. So got to do that first. Now we're going to try to run it. Okay, it runs terrible. Gonna have to go in the shop and check some things. Okay, back in the shop after an attempted test run, and I have also replaced the fuel line from the tank to the carburetor, in addition to replacing the clutch. But indeed, just like the customer says, it has very little power. I can barely get it to rev over 5,200 RPM, measured by the tach. And I've tested the compression, and obviously it has good spark. I did notice that there was not a lot of exhaust coming out of the muffler, and I had previously checked the spark arrestor and it was perfectly clean. But one clue is that the engine got very hot, and I could even smell the smell of hot metal, and not a lot of exhaust was coming out. So I'm going to have to do some disassembly and check some things. I'm a little suspicious of maybe the coil is rubbing on the flywheel, something of that nature. It seems pretty free. So, but I'm going to take it apart, come back. Okay, I'm back after some teardown, and I've definitely found a problem. The coil is not rubbing on the flywheel. However, the valve train is definitely an issue. We've got a full intake stroke right there, full valve lift, but when we get to the exhaust valve, we have almost no lift at all. So the exhaust is not escaping out of the engine completely, and that's why it's superheating. So this has got a flat camshaft, and I'm going to have to look up a camshaft for it, and probably a cam cover gasket. And I'm going to have to take the engine off, and the camshaft's on the bottom of the engine. This is a Shindaiwa C4 series, which is a hybrid 2-cycle, 4-cycle hybrid. So it's got a cam, push rods, rockers, and valves, and it's like a 4-stroke engine, but it's a dry sump, and it runs on 2-cycle gas. And got a flat cam, so we're gonna have to do some more teardown. Be back in a minute. Okay, we have done some teardown, and got an echo block-off plate on the intake, and a Husqvarna block-off plate on the exhaust, and that allowed me to put this in the aqueous pressure washer and clean the engine. So when I open it, no exterior dirt will get in the internals. And I'm going to have to be removing, it looks like this engine mounting bracket will clear the clutch. There's a hole back there that this will clear. However, the camshaft cover is definitely underneath the clutch. So I'm going to have to take that brand new clutch back off again, and then remove this engine mounting bracket, and that will allow me access to this camshaft cover. And what I think is going on here is we've got we've got a base circle for the cam, and what's supposed to be a single high lift D cup here is turned into a little tiny single A cup lift. And you're probably wondering, well, why would if you've got a single cam lobe and you've got two push rods, 2 rockers on here, one is intake and one is exhaust, and they're both operating off of the same cam lobe, why wouldn't they both be lifting the same low amount? Well, the reason is because if you turn this cam sideways and look at it from a side view, the rockers are offset. So 50% of the cam is working the intake, and 50% is working the exhaust. And so I think the exhaust side is broken off here. So that's why we're getting full lift on the intake and partial lift on the exhaust. We'll find out when we tear the engine down. So I'm going to pause here. Now I have looked up the parts, and we do have a cam in stock, and we have sales history on this part. So if we've sold a number of these, that would indicate, there's a weakness in this engine, and so that's what I'm expecting to find. So I'm going to pause the camera, and I'm going to do some more nut and bolt disassembly, and we'll come back. Okay, ready to take the timing cover off. I'm going to find out what's going on in here. Yes, interesting. The flashlight. Yeah, the top of that cam lobe, at least half of it is broken off. Let's see. So that is the problem. Okay. Now, I have printed a couple pages out of the service manual. It's an aid to help locate top dead center on the compression stroke. And, the cam lobe is supposed to be facing down exactly 6 o'clock. But there's two revolutions of the crankshaft. So we want to make sure that we're on the compression stroke. And that's when the valves don't move at all. So if it was the other way, the valves would move. That is TDC compression. So that's safe to where I can remove the cam and these little rockers here. And I do want to point out where the timing mark is. Okay, the timing mark, you can see that line. That line on the crankcase pointing towards the lobe of the cam, that is the timing mark. So I'm going to carefully lift these out. Pull this pin out. Okay. So that pin goes there. All right, that cam is removed, and it appears as though the decompression weight and spring and so forth is perfectly okay. It's just 1/2 of the lobe of the cam has broken off. So it's supposed to look like that. So without turning the engine, I'm going to drop this in here so that the timing marks are lined up. And we'll do a little bit of reassembly. I'm going to deal with push rods later. Almost lost it. Okay, there's one. There's two. Okay, so my push rods are back in, and new cam installed. And before I button it up, I'm just going to double check that timing, make sure maybe the crankshaft moved and I'm off a tooth. So I am going to check that. But the flywheel, my clutch housing is removed, so I have to use this method here, a flywheel fin next to the crankcase casting with this magnet cluster right there. So that's TDC, and then I've got to make sure that these marks line up. And then I'm going to be adjusting the, after I put the cover back on, I'll be adjusting the valve clearance. The intake is 3 and the exhaust is 4 thousandths. And there was a specification to measure from the base circle the back of the base circle to the high point of the cam lobe, and there was a reject spec, but this one is just terrible. I don't have to measure that. That's garbage. So I'm going to do a little bit more reassembly, and we're going to come back when I'm doing valve adjustment, valve clearance adjustment. Okay, we're trying to find the correct timing marks, and I've come to the conclusion that this service manual is incorrect for this engine. This was printed out of a T2500, T2510, T3410 service manual, and those are all line trimmers. And this is an HT2510, and the flywheel is completely different. What it shows here in this manual is the magnet cluster over to the left, and one of the fins lined up with the crankcase housing. And when I position this over that way, we're nowhere near top dead center. And so what I had to do was, take the plug out and turn the engine and visually find TDC, and then that enabled me to drop the cam in. I'm going to bring the camera in for a close-up. Okay. Okay, so there is a mark, a line. It's probably pretty tough to see because the gasket's covering it up, but that line is lined up with this vertical web on the cam lobe. And you can also see that there are horizon lines. There's a horizon line right there, and there's one on the opposite side right there. And over on the side of the engine, there is a locating screw. And by removing this spacer washer that's underneath, this screw can be screwed in farther and engage the teeth on the camshaft, and thereby locking it in position. And it corresponds with the horizon mark. Get that just right. Okay. Okay, so you can see that the timing, the screw is now locked into the gear teeth, and it's lined up with the horizon mark on the right there. So that's a good spot to do the valve adjustment. And I did find that the cam followers, the cam follower pin is badly worn. So, I've got a new pin. It's a 5mm by 29.8, and I'm going to be replacing that because of the wear. And a lot of these parts are very inexpensive. All of these gaskets and this pin, they're all less than $2 each. And the cam was only, I don't know, $10 or $12, very inexpensive. So it's better just to replace that stuff. And so I'm going to be replacing all of the gaskets. And one of the things that occurred to me was that if the nose, half of the nose of the old cam crumbled off and crumbs of that nylon cam gear dropped into the bottom of the engine, rather than just wearing and wearing and wearing and wearing and very minute particles going out, I'm worried that a large piece could be in the bottom of the engine. And so that's why I ordered this gasket, which goes on the bottom here. Now, part of the technology in a Shindaiwa C4 engine is there are two reed valves in here. They call them power port reeds. There's one in the intake under the insulator, and then there's an extra one on the bottom of the motor. And I'm concerned that pieces of the broken camshaft may be hung up in this reed, and I want to make sure that the bottom of the engine, there's nothing left of that broken cam in there. And every low emission engine, each manufacturer had to alter their design to get a specific patent. And there's a lot of customers out there. Occasionally I see comments, well, why do they build it like that? Well, that's just a bunch of extra expensive parts, and why can't they just make a simple two-stroke engine? And why do the manufacturers do this? Okay, the manufacturers are forced to do this. And a low emission engine like this is actually now becoming a dinosaur in favor of battery electric is being mandated, zero emission. And pretty soon the battery zero emission equipment will be taking over. And customers just don't understand that the manufacturers are forced into this. It's not that they want to do it. And in our area, we've got these Budinsky, Greta Tootbutt, green eco-Nazis that want to butt into your business and order you what kind of power equipment you can use. And they have no idea, and they've never operated any power equipment in their life. And I call them butt sniffers. They just want to stick their nose into everybody's business and order them around. And as a result, strange engine designs come out, and then engines disappear altogether, and you get a bunch of underpowered, overpriced, non-repairable electric battery equipment. And batteries are more poisonous than the carbon emissions out of these engines. So that's kind of where we're going. And so that's the explanation of why this engine is so complicated. And Steel had to design a different type of hybrid four-stroke, and they don't have reeds in theirs, and they have their own patent for the four-mix. And it doesn't really matter how low emission those are. That's just not good enough. So you have to have zero emission, or what they call zero emission. So this engine is actually obsolete now. So anyway, to go further in this, what I need to do is I'm going to be replacing the cam follower pin. I'm going to be replacing this gasket, and then I'm going to be putting the cover back on, and that will enable me to adjust the valve clearance. And it is now locked at TDC compression with that little lock bolt. After I'm done, I'm going to remove the bolt and re-add the spacer back and then retighten the bolt with some Loctite on it. And then, the timing will be perfect. Now, but I did run into, I was not going to show the thread repair, but I did find, I found one and I fixed it already. There's a 4mm helicoil in this upper left corner for the valve cover right here. And just to keep the video short, I just did that off camera and fixed it already. But I ran into a second one. This is 5mm on the engine mounting bracket. It goes here. And finding 2 strip screws on the same machine, I thought I would have to address it. And in our area, we have a lot of cheap customers. Bert is the guy that owns this hedge trimmer, and he's really cheap. He won't spend as little money as possible, even if these parts are inexpensive. And he will go to any tailgate, carport, shade tree, living room floor mechanic, one of his amigos that he can go to save, any money at all. And, those guys get carried away. You give them an impact gun and they just go crazy with it. And they, impact all of these tiny little 4mm fasteners into the engine and strip the threads out. And then, obviously when it won't work, he put a brand new carburetor on this and it didn't work because the carburetor wasn't the problem. Then they give up and then they take it into a real shop and then I have to deal with it. And when I ask them, well, who did this? Who stripped out these screws? I always get the same answer. Oh, the guy did it. Well, who is the guy? Oh, those guys. Well, who are those guys? Oh, that guy. Well, what is that guy's name? What is his name? Oh, it's Theguy. And that's the answer that I get. And those guys, they put a gun in their hand, and these guns are adjustable. There's power settings on these things. And it doesn't matter if there's, a battery one or you have a pneumatic. The power is adjustable. You can turn this thing up and down and adjust the power. And when I'm working on an engine this small with 4mm fasteners, you need to have yourself, if you're going to use a power tool, you can get one that's got an adjustable clutch. And there's a difference between an impact gun, even if there's a power setting, and a screwdriver that's got a clutch, a release clutch, and you can adjust the torque where it releases and it won't strip a screw. But those guys, they go for the and they strip out all the screws, and then I have to come along after them and then repair all the stripped screws. And I've run into several steel BR blowers where, they take it to those guys, that guy, the guy, and they have the air filter replaced. And then when the guy puts the air filter cover back on, and the screws holding the air filter cover are just impacted into a plastic air cleaner box on a BR blower, and that box is expensive and it's hard to remove and replace. And then the next time the air filter needs replacement, you go in there with your screwdriver, T27 screwdriver, and you try to undo the screws, and the threaded inserts in the air filter housing are just spinning in the plastic, and the screws won't come out. And the only way to get the air cleaner cover off of the blower is to drill the heads off of the screws, and then you have to replace the air cleaner box. A lot of labor and a lot of expense. And what I would like to do, with those guys is I'd like to put one of these guns on their nuts. Do that and twist their nuts off. So, that's my rant for the day. So I'm going to be showing you how to do a thread repair on a stripped 5mm fastener. And so I'm going to shut the camera off, and we're going to move over to the drill press, and we're going to do that real quick before I proceed with engine reassembly and then valve clearance adjustment. Okay, we're over at the drill press here, and let's see. That is the hole that is stripped, and so we're going to be clamping this onto the table. I've got a center finder. So this is the drill bit that was in the 5mm helicoil kit. Switch to the tap. It's through. All right, and then we're going to go back to the bench, and we're going to remove the tap and put the insert in there. Okay, we're back on the bench. You no longer need the drill press. Drill press is for accuracy. I always prefer to, when something is easily mountable on the drill press, that's the way to do it. So, helicoil inserts, the standard length is always 1 1/2 times the diameter. So if you have a 5 millimeter hole, the standard most common helicoil insert is 1.5 the diameter. So 7.5 is the standard length of a regular helicoil. And then they come in increments of 1/2 the diameter lower and higher. So the next one longer is 10 millimeter, and the next one shorter would be 5 millimeter. And so looking at this, this is not very thick. This is like 6.8 millimeters. So I can't use a 10 millimeter insert in here. I will be using a 7.5, and it's pretty easy to put these in. Get my installation tool. Be right back. All right, I've got my installation tool, and I'm going to drop the insert in there, and I've decided to use a 7.5 length. And it just captures the little installation tang, and the installer will shrink the insert. And you wind this up until the insert is about flush, maybe a little bit just barely coming out, and then you put it over the hole and wind it in the hole. And it's got to be a 1/4 to 1/3 of a turn below flush. Sorry for my shadow. And then to break the tang, the installation tang off, you need a small punch and a very small hammer. That'll work. Okay. And I could have used a time cert in this application as well. And I do have time certs. I like those too. But yeah, that's properly repaired now. That will take some torque. Okay, so now those guys, they would have used, like, even if they had noticed that the screws were stripped, they would have used drywall screws, duct tape, glue gun, paper clips, baling wire, crazy glue. You know, that's the kind of work that I see. So, you know, when I work on it, it's got to be proper. So, Yep, we're going to be moving back to the valve adjustment, and I'm going to try to keep the video short, so I'm going to edit out some of the nuts and bolts. And you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be looking for, I'm going to be opening up the bottom of the engine, and I'm going to be looking for remnants of the broken cam stuck in the reeds, the power port reeds. And if I don't find anything, then I'm not going to show it on the camera. If I find something, I will record it and you'll see it. So we'll continue. Okay, I thought I would bring you back for just a second, just so you can see some of the interesting technology in Shindaiwa's C4 low emission engine design. This is the power port reed. There's another one under the insulator here, and you know, they have a patent on that. And in the engine's normal position, operating position, this would be the lowest point in the engine, and I cannot find any remnants or crumbs off of the old broken cam lobe. They must have gone all the way through and been exhausted. But it is interesting to see, you know, part of the technology. You know, Husqvarna bought Redmax from Komatsu Zenowa just to get the stratified charge patent for the airhead engine. And then Shindaiwa came up with this hybrid four-stroke. And Steel, you know, had to come up with a different method, and they call theirs four-mix. And so they can't copy each other. These are patented, so they're not all the same. But it gives me peace of mind opening this and confirming that there are no broken camshaft crumbs left inside of there. Now I'm pretty confident I can put it back together and it's going to run. So sorry for making the video longer than necessary, but wanted to show you that. Okay, now we are partially assembled. I still have my locator bolt screwed in without the spacer, so the crankshaft is blocked at TDC compression. And when I put the new cam follower pin into the cover and bolted everything up, the clearance tightened up, and you know, as you can see, there is a fair amount of wear on that follower pin. So I'm glad I replaced that. Now in the service tools, Shindaiwa does make you know, a tool kit for the C4 engine, and this is the valve adjustment tool, and this is the rocker pin press tool, and there's even a valve spring compressor. And I do not have any of these. The valve springs are so soft you can compress them by hand, as I did earlier in the video. Very, very small, light springs, not a big deal to compress those. But to adjust the valve clearance, I do have a Motion Pro small four-stroke adjuster. And the very smallest wrench in here does fit these 8mm nuts, and I don't need you know, one of the special little dials that go down the center. I'm going to be using a 2.5mm Allen, and that fits into the adjustment set screw. So we're looking for, you know, it's interesting, the service manual said 3 on the intake and 4 on the exhaust, but the specification chart shows 4 and 4. So there's a little bit of a contradiction there. I don't think that 1/1000th of an inch is going to make any difference. I've got a 3 and a 4 here, and right now it's tight. I can't get the 3 into either one of them. So that's probably maybe some of the wear on this old pin. It was sloppy, and it was sloppier before, or maybe there was some valve drop. The valve faces wore, and the valves dropped further in the head. But to start, you got to loosen these. And play around with it. Okay, that's pretty good there. Yeah. Now when you tighten the nuts, the setting may change. So this one a little bit of a drag. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. That one's a little loose. That's better. I think we're a little tight on the exhaust. I'm going to come back to that, loosen that up a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. Got sort of a light drag on those. Okay, so I'm happy with the valve adjustment. That means that I can add this spacer back. And unlock the timing gears. Okay, so from this point, I'm going to be removing remnants of the old valve cover gasket, and I'm going to be installing the new one. And then when I go back together with the screws, I am not going to be using a power wrench. I'm going to be using, if you want to use some kind of a power tool, and it's okay to use a power tool to remove the fasteners, but when you install them, this is just for test purposes. You see, this has got a clutch on it, and you can adjust the torque release, and that way you will not strip any small engine fasteners like those guys, that guy, and a lot of my crappy mechanics like Scratch, Dingus, Gomer, Sniffles, Speedy. He's real bad for using guns. He uses a gun for everything, and so that's how you can damage an engine, a small engine like that. So we're going to stop for now, and we're going to reassemble and come back when the hedge trimmer is probably ready to test run. Okay, we're ready for a test run. See what happens. Hope it works. Find out. Okay, successful test run. Now I'm satisfied. The tachometer had this thing peaking out around 8,800 RPM, which is pretty good for a 4-stroke hybrid. They're more torque than RPM, like a 2-stroke. One little detail that I'm going to order is this finger guard broke off. It was hanging on by a whisker, so I'm going to order that and replace that before I give it back to Bert. And yep, his Shindaiwa now runs. So this video, a lot of my videos, are for the do-it-yourselfer homeowner who just maybe want to tackle the job by themselves and save the money. This machine is more of a high-end commercial professional machine that it's unlikely that a homeowner would have one and use one and put high hours on it and break it like this. So this video is a little more directed towards the shop owner who doesn't have technicians that are quite up to par, or an aspiring technician who wants to raise their level of proficiency. So if you like the video, thumbs up, subscribe, and just watch for my next one. I'm not sure what I'll be doing next, but there'll be more coming. Signing off for now, the unknown mechanic.